Hello and welcome to Where to Go. I'm Bella Talbot, Brand Executive at DK Eyewitness.
And I'm Alex Pathé, Editor at DK Eyewitness.
And welcome to Where to Go, where every fortnight we find out more about the world's favourite travel destinations with the people who know those places best. Where are we going today, Alex?
Bella, today we're off to the Portuguese archipelago of Madeira, which lies off the northwest coast of Africa. I'm really excited because it's such a great sort of outdoorsy location. It's got some outstanding landscapes spread across its 4 islands. So it's a really popular haven for outdoor pursuits like hiking, cycling, surfing. So I think it's going to be a really, really good one.
That's right. And I'm really looking forward to it because I've personally worked with our guest before. She is just incredible. So without further ado, Alex, who is joining us today?
Today, we're joined by Joana Taborda. Portuguese travel writer Joana Taborda splits her time between Lisbon and Madeira. She's worked with us here at DK Eyewitness, sharing hidden gems in Lisbon like a local, as well as writing for brands such as Lonely Planet, Atlas Obscura, Culture Trip, and Fodors. Welcome, Joana.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Hi, Joanna. Thanks so much for joining us. So, as usual, we'll begin by learning a little bit more about our guest, Joana, followed by her all-important recommendations of where to go and insider knowledge of Madeira. Then we'll hear about ways to make the most positive impact when you visit the region.
So, Joana, you were born in Lisbon, but you also spend a lot of time in Madeira. Could you explain what the connection is there?
Yeah, so it's a funny story. I've lived in Lisbon all my life. Then around 2021, in the middle of the COVID pandemic, I was in Prague, Czech Republic, and it was getting too cold to go outside, like minus 10 degrees.
Wow.
And the only thing you could do was go for a walk. And, being from a sunny country like Portugal, I can't deal with that much cold. So I wanted to get back home as soon as possible. Mm-hmm. My partner and I were thinking of buying a house in Portugal, but Lisbon has become so expensive that we were looking for an alternative. My partner, who is British, by the way, said if he was going to live in Portugal again, we met in Lisbon, it would have to be somewhere where the water was warm enough for a swim. And if you swim around Lisbon coast, you'll know that it can be quite freezing. And that's kind of how we ended up in Madeira. I mean, at the time, the island was also getting quite popular with remote workers. Mm-hmm. So it was one of the few destinations people could travel to. I think in UK, for example, it was marked as a green destination or something like that. And it still has the huge community of remote workers and digital nomads. And some have actually also bought houses in Madeira. So I don't have any family in Madeira. I only have a friend that I met in Lisbon when I was studying, but that's about it.
It's interesting you mentioned that about the digital nomads, because I remember reading about that. Did they have a special visa in Madeira? Is that right?
I think it's a special visa in Portugal. I'm not sure if it's still active at the moment, but yeah, it was quite a big incentive for people to move to Portugal and kind of settle here and work. And Madeira had this guy called Gonçalo. He set up this kind of digital nomad village in Ponta do Sol, which is like
I heard about that.
Small little village in the south of Madeira. And that became quite popular. And now you also see that spreading to other cities across the island. So you have like the East community, you have Funchal, which is the capital community, and it kind of spreads around.
That's really cool because before we jumped on with you, we were talking about how I think there's a little bit of a reputation that Madeira is potentially a holiday destination for sort of the older generation, but it sounds like, there's some cool stuff going on.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that stereotype, I would say, has kind of changed a bit. I think partly due to like this new generation coming in and working from home and being able to, be at the beach and things like that. But you see also a lot more people doing outdoor things. So it's not just, cruises and everything. So it's changed a lot.
And what do you love most about the region?
So I think for me, it's how diverse the landscape is. Like on the same day, you could be in the city, go for a swim in the sea, and then end up in the mountains, like watching the sunset. The food is also amazing. Like I love cooking, and you get a lot of tropical ingredients in Madeira, like mango, avocados, passion fruit. And I think I had started cooking a lot more since I moved to Madeira. And that's because just how easy it is to get a lot of these ingredients.
That sounds incredible. Do you have any favourite spots in particular?
Yes. So one of my favorite spots is Fanal, which is like this ancient forest with 100-year-old til trees, like TIL, which have these really striking, like undulating shapes that could belong in a movie setting, I would
Yeah.
say. Actually, they just recently filmed a part of the Star Wars series called The Acolyte, I think it's called, in a couple of other locations on the island, but Fanal was one of them. And the forest is usually covered in this like mystical fog, but somehow every time I go there is actually like a clear day. But if you search for Fanal like on social media, you'll see what I mean, like really magical photos. And this area is actually a part of the Lori Silva, which is like a UNESCO protected forest in Madeira that kind of represents what the island was like before the Portuguese arrived, like in 1419. And they actually named the island for like how much wood there was. So Madeira means wood in Portuguese.
Oh, lovely. Amazing. Thank you, Joanna. I think that's a really nice introduction to the region. So we're going to move on now to the best things to do. So, to kick things off, we're going to ask you to give us a quick fire tour of Madeira. We're going to name a few categories and you have to suggest just one thing. Although notoriously, this round gets slower and slower because we just ask lots of follow-up questions. Okay, so are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, so first things first, your favourite view.
So there are a lot of viewpoints across the island, but I like Mirador de Bica da Cana, which is sort of like northwest, but like inland. You have to be lucky to get a good view. Like anywhere in Madeira, the clouds come and go. You should always check for the webcams before you go up to the mountains because the weather can change quite fast. You can just search like Madeira webcams online and you'll find a few websites with live views. Like I've been in the city with a t-shirt and as soon as I got to this barbecue spot near the mountains, I was wearing like my full winter gear. So you always have to come prepared. And this viewpoint, Bica da Cana, is interesting because you get to see a bit of the sea, the São Vicente town in the north of the island, and then you have like the silhouettes of some of Madeira's peaks, like Pico do Arieiro, for example. And there's also a camping site there. So one of the times I went there, I was actually with a group of friends trying to spot shooting stars. So we spent the night there. You need permission to camp in Madeira, by the way. There's a website that has really good information about this, which is madeiracamping.com. And once you get your license, you can bring your tent and enjoy the landscape around you. And I've done this a couple of times and I really recommend it. Just be sure to check the weather before you go. Like I've spent a night out on like during a storm and that wasn't fun.
Wow. Yeah.
But when we wake up during the day, it was fine. Like the weather was amazing. So you never know.
Did you see shooting stars?
Yes, I did. I mean, actually, I was because I'm really into astrophotography, like taking pictures with my camera, because there's a lot of things that you can't see like through your naked eye. So I didn't see it with my eyes. I saw it through the camera. So, but it was there.
Is Madeira particularly good for stargazing?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because if you go to the mountains, like there's not much light pollution, and there's a couple of other spots also by the sea when you don't have many buildings around, and yeah, you can get really really cool pictures of the stars. And there's a lot of also these lodges in the mountains, so you can spend the night there. So you book it in advance, and then you can obviously be there the whole night taking pictures or, stargazing.
That's so cool.
That sounds so beautiful. So the next round, Joanna, is what is your favourite day activity?
I guess swimming is my favorite day activity. Like we live in Funchal, which is the capital, and we have a few spots near us where we can go for a swim. I mean, that's part of the reason why we're on the island anyway, so we can swim more often. And it took me a while to get used to the pebble beaches, like the stone beaches. There are a few sandy beaches on the island, but not really in Funchal. So the first thing my partner and I did was to get one of those swimming shoes.
Oh, yeah.
And that has made quite a difference. So we can like walk in and out of the water without looking. Like sometimes we spot people coming out of the water without these shoes and they look like zombies, like trying to crawl out.
So painful walking across the like rocky.
Exactly. And so if we only want like a quick little swim, we usually go to Praia do Almirante Reis, which is like in this horseshoe bay overlooking the old town, or Praia de Santiago, which is right next to this 17th century yellow fort. And there's a bar there where you can stop for a drink and have some nibbles. And a lot of the locals go there, and you see people like from 8 to 80 going for their like afternoon swim. And I really like seeing that. And then if we have a bit more time and we want to spend like the whole morning or afternoon like swimming, we will head to one of the Lido. So either Barreirinha, which is close to the old town, or Lido, which is where more near the hotel area. So these places offer like direct access to the water. There's no pebbles. And you have sun lounges, there's a bar, sometimes there's like a kids area. So you do have to pay a fee to get into these, which is usually around like €6. But there's usually discounts for kids, or if you go like in the last few hours before it closes. We actually have a package card because we live there, so it's a bit cheaper. Yeah. But I still think it's worth it if you want to, like spend a whole morning by the water and easy access to the sea, and also want to have like access to a bar with food and drinks. I think that's a great option for that.
Is the sea just generally pretty good for swimming then, or do you need to be going to specific beaches?
No, the sea is really good for swimming. There's not too many waves. I mean, there's areas where you have waves and people go surfing and everything. But for the most part, the water is quite calm. And especially the Lidos, they have like protected areas with stones. And the temperature is good pretty much all year round, which is good.
Great. Okay. So moving on, I think you've sort of teased already that this is something you really love about Madeira, but what is your favorite thing to eat?
Yeah, so in Madeira, I like the espetada madeirense, which was basically a beef skewer that usually comes in a bay laurel stick. So some restaurants already have like these metal hangers on the table where you basically hang the skewers as soon as they're ready. They come straight from the grill. In some places, you can actually cook it yourself. But I found that it's better to let the locals do it because they know the right timing for cooking. I usually go to Restaurant Sant Antonio for that, which is close to Câmara de Lobos, a few miles west from Funchal. But you also find it like in food stalls during like local festivals around the island. And it often comes with bolo do caco, which is a sweet potato bread, usually toasted, spread with some garlic butter, and you kind of dip in the juices of the meat, and it's delicious.
This sounds great.
Sounds so tasty. That's fantastic. And so the next question, Joana, I feel like most people know Madeira for one drink in particular, but what would you say is your favourite thing to drink?
So I'm assuming you're talking about Madeira wine, but actually I would say poncha is something that you should be drinking in Madeira, which is basically a drink made with the local sugarcane firewater, aguardiente de cana, or rum, and it's mixed with fruit juice, honey, or sugar. There is the original one, which is made with orange juice and lemon. The pescador or fisherman's poncha that has only lemon juice. So this is apparently what the fishermen used to drink back in the old day, and it kind of became like the staple poncha. And then from there you have a variety of flavors like passion fruit and tangerine are quite popular, but I've also had ginger, strawberry, mint. And in Funchal, I usually go to Rei da Poncha, which translates as King of the Poncha. And the guys there have a big choice of ponchas. If you're in a group, you can order like a meter of poncha and you get like 20 small cups with, I think, 10 different flavors or something like that. And you have poncha bars all across the island, so it's really hard to go wrong. But I would say stick to just one if you're driving because it's deceivingly strong. Like it tastes like fruit juice, but it does have alcohol in it. So just be careful with that, but it is delicious, and yeah.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
Okay, and then next up we have your favorite museum or gallery.
So there are only a handful of museums and galleries in Madeira, like everything is kind of focused on the outdoors, but I'm still exploring them. One that I visited recently that I really enjoyed was the Universo de Memórias de João Carlos Abreu. It's a long name. The building itself is beautiful. It's a 19th century manor house with stained glass windows. And inside is the collection of João Carlos Abreu, a local man that used to work for the tourism board. So he had a chance to like travel around the world to promote Madeira. And on his trips, he started collecting like several items that are kind of dotted around these different rooms of this house. Like there's a tie room with, 1,000 ties, a horse room with like 600 horses of like all shapes and sizes. And even as you walk around the house, you see like the walls are stacked with contemporary paintings that some representing Madeira that are really beautiful. Actually, I had a really hard time focusing while I was in there because there's so many things to look at that I feel like I have to go back and kind of like take it all in again.
Wow, sounds fascinating. Very organized that this is the tie room, this is the horse room.
Yeah, very collection focused.
His two passions, ties and horses. Well, that concludes the quickfire tour. We really held you up, but thank you so much. You gave us so much handy information and tips there.
We're so bad, Bella, at keeping this
I
quick.
know,
We
it's
keep
all
following
us.
up. You're giving such interesting answers. That was fantastic. So if we broaden the focus now just slightly, what are your absolute highlights that you can recommend to people visiting?
So most people come to Madeira now for the levadas. These are hiking trails that basically follow the island's irrigation channels. And you have around 200 of them. The channels were used to capture water from the mountains and bringing to the agricultural lands at the bottom. And many still have this role, but you have the possibility of walking along them. So there are easy ones like the Vereda dos Balcões, which is quite easy, which is around like 2-hour round trip. And then you have a hike that takes you between Pico do Arieiro and Pico Ruivo, which is the highest peak on the island at about 1,800 meters above sea level. And that can take half a day to complete, so 4 to 5 hours. And watching the sunrise in either of these peaks is amazing. There's actually a shorter route to Pico Ruivo, which starts at Estrada do Teixeira. So you could park the car there and walk about 3 kilometers to the top if you don't fancy like doing the big hike. And the Visit Madeira website has a list of like all the levadas that you can do. There's also an app called Walk Me that you can use to guide you. Though I always recommend checking the status of the hike trails that you're going to. The IFCN Madeira website has like some paths that has information like if paths can close to, like, for example, due to bad weather, if it rains or something, and they don't let people follow those paths. And then you have like natural swimming pools like in Porto Muniz, which are like carved out from volcanic rocks. And those are also very picturesque. There are 2 areas there. One is free, and then there's a big one that you pay like €3 to go in. But honestly, the scenery is amazing, and to have a swim there, it is really good.
It sounds like Madeira is just sort of like a playground for outdoor enthusiasts. You've told us about hiking, stargazing, swimming. Is there anything else that listeners can get up to?
Yeah, there's so many things that you could do. Like Porto de Cruz in the north side of the island is famous for like the surf scene. You can go dolphin watching. Sometimes you can also see whales. Like from Funchal, you can get a boat trip to do that. You can do snorkeling or diving in Garajao. There's like a reserve there that is made for that. You can go stand-up paddling. I've also done stand-up yoga. So like yoga on the sea, which was quite fun.
Wow. Were you good? Do you have good balance?
Yeah, so the boards are, I think, a bit bigger than the normal stand-up paddle ones. And you also attach to the teacher in the middle. So you're not, like floating and doing yoga at the same time. That would be difficult. But it does require a bit more balance than normal yoga, I would say. But it is quite fun. So that is around Câmara de Lobos area. You can do that there.
That sounds amazing. I would love to try stand-up yoga. I think I would be terrible, but...
I mean, the water is not cold. So if you do fall, like, it's a swim. So it's fine.
Wakes you up.
Yeah.
Exactly, yes.
That all sounds absolutely wonderful. So you've given us so many wonderful recommendations. But finally, are there any other hidden gems you haven't mentioned that you'd like to share?
Yes. So one thing that many locals do on a weekend or if they're celebrating something is to head out for a barbecue in the mountains.
Nice.
There are barbecue spots like scattered around the island. You have to, bring your own bag of coal, grill, and obviously the food. But these are areas specifically made for this, so you can, set a fire safely. Mm-hmm. And usually if you search for picnic spots, you'll find a barbecue area nearby. My favorite so far has been the Chão de Pasto. So from here, you can walk to a viewpoint as well and get a great view of the Madeira peaks. Wow. I also recommend the natural pools in Seixal. They're a bit smaller than the ones in Porto Muniz, but the setting is also really beautiful with this stone arch kind of framing the water. And there's also a black sand beach nearby. Mm-hmm. So you kind of get the best of both worlds. And they're both free to access.
I really feel like you're not selling it as a holiday destination, but actually the lifestyle. I now really want to move there and live your life, Joanna. It sounds so great.
Yes. Yeah. I've gotten used to kind of the lifestyle of the barbecue and the camping. So there's a lot to do when you live there as well.
Oh, barbecues in the mountains, camping under the stars. It just sounds absolutely wonderful. It sounds so good.
With its beautiful gardens and scenic hiking trails, Madeira promises outdoor adventure. And when it's time to relax, there are plenty of beaches, glasses of award-winning wine and tasty dishes to be enjoyed. Make the absolute most out of your trip with Top 10 Madeira.
So the final section is all about helping our listeners to plan a visit. So the first question, when is the best time, in your opinion, to visit Madeira?
So I think you can visit pretty much any time of the year. The weather is good, like, from 20 to 25 degrees pretty much all year round. Like I've been swimming in March and also October, and the temperatures are great. January is a bit rainier, but other than that, you can do most of the activities during the rest of the year. Just make sure to bring layers because, the temperature is like microclimates between different parts of the island.
Yeah.
It can sometimes snow in the mountains, but only like in winter, really, not like throughout the year.
Great advice, thank you. And are there any particular events to mark in the calendar?
Yeah, absolutely. Honestly, there's always like some sort of event going on in Madeira. It's hard to keep track. But the biggest ones I would say are the flower festival around May. Madeira is kind of filled with tropical flowers.
Yeah.
It's known as the island of eternal spring. And this is kind of a celebration of spring. There's a big parade. They place flower carpets around the city streets and there's concerts and everything. Carnival is also a big thing. And in Madeira, they kind of celebrate it like Brazilian style, like with bikini and kind of flamboyant costumes. I mean, the weather also helps for that. Yeah. And that's usually around February, March. But I quite like it around Christmas time. So they really go all out with the Christmas lights, especially in Funchal, the capital. And you can do what I usually do with my friends is I usually go on a little night tour to see the lights along the seaside promenade in the municipal garden. They set up some food stalls and we stop for some Madeira wine or a queijada, which is a traditional cheese tart from Madeira. And you also see a lot of places selling vinha de alhos sandwiches, which is basically like a sandwich with pork marinated in garlic and wine. And then on the 23rd of December, they have this market night where people gathered around the Mercado dos Lavradores, which is the traditional food market in Funchal. And there's carol singing inside. And outside, there's loads of food stalls that are open until like 2 a.m. or something like that. And then you have the New Year's celebrations, which are insane. They have incredible fireworks shows across Madeira. And I was afraid of fireworks before coming to Madeira, but pretty much all the celebrations on the island end with a fireworks show.
Right.
They also have a firework competition around July in the summer to decide who's going to do the show at the end of the year. So which country.
Cool.
That's cool.
So every Saturday or something like that, you have a different display, and then whoever wins that competition gets to do the firework display for the New Year's.
Do people vote for like the best one, or how's it decided?
I think there's a jury, but I don't think it's voted by the people. Actually, I'm not quite sure. But yeah.
Firework display jury, what a job.
Sounds like there are a lot of fireworks for someone who's originally afraid of fireworks. Has your fear been lessened just by kind of constant exposure?
Yes, it has. Yeah.
That's good. Amazing. I'm sure, Joanna, that anyone listening to this is going to feel incredibly enticed to visit. So we always like to ask right at the end if there's anything that visitors can do to make a positive impact when they travel to Madeira.
Yeah. So one thing that I would say is don't go hiking on your own. Or if you do, like, please tell someone where you're going. Yeah. Because it's easy to get lost in the area if you don't know it. Or just, go with a local guide that kind of knows the area, because it's hard for the local authorities sometimes to reach people if they don't know where they are in difficult locations. Yeah. So that's one thing. I would always say to read the updates of a trail online before you head out, because, for example, if it rains or something, you shouldn't go there. Yeah. And usually if they close the path, they will let you know in the IFCN Madeira website.
Right.
Also try to explore beyond like the most popular Levada hikes, because, the paths are quite narrow and you have a lot of people going back and forth. So it's good to kind of like spread it out. And, with 200 Levadas to choose from, you don't always have to go for the most popular ones. Yeah. Obviously, don't leave any trash or cigarette butts behind. There are not always bins around these walks. So, you need to save your trash until you reach your hotel or whatever. Just make sure you don't litter the forest.
Thank you, Joanna. I feel like you've given such good, actionable advice throughout the episode. Thank you so much. There's so much tips and information in there. But also it was very inspiring, and now we're all collectively going to move to Madeira.
Great. I will be here to welcome you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Oh, thank you so much to Joanna. That was an absolutely fantastic episode. I'm kind of craving those hiking trails. It sounded unbelievable.
I know, and she gave some really great advice about telling people where you're going, because I would definitely get lost. So
For sure.
Great advice for me. So listeners, you can follow more of Joanna's work at cityodes.com and on Instagram at cityodes.
And for our next episode, we're off to the wonderful Spanish city of Valencia. So that should be another really good one. Thank you so much for listening.
This podcast was produced by Julia Baker and me, Bella Talbot. For more information about DK Eyewitness, visit dk.com/travel and follow us on social media at DK Eyewitness. Please rate, review and follow the show. Your support means so much to us.